speaking on the topic of classroom management, a topic very important for all teachers, but I've created this especially for brand spanking new first-time teachers. So I'm really thankful for the graduate school and teacher education program I went to, because they really did focus some of the instruction on how to have a classroom management that was effective in the classroom. And the reason they did this because they saw that a lot of first-time teachers were so unhappy because they realized that classroom management was the hardest thing to tackle in the class. They really hammered into our heads how important it is to really focus the first few weeks on classroom management, no matter what grade you're teaching. And so knowing this and going into teaching my first year, I felt so much more prepared. It reflected in my classroom. So when our cohort got together and we spoke about our classrooms, we kind of got to see the trend of how we all really did focus on classroom management, teaching procedures and whatnot, and having an action plan really helped us with that first year. And so we could really focus on the content we were teaching after we did after we had a really great foundation in the beginning of the year. And so that's why this video is being created. I want to help some of the new teachers out. Even if you've been teaching for a couple years and you feel like classroom management is still kind of tricky for you, I've really kind of planned out this video in a way where I get to give you practical information, resources on how you can create your own plan going forward. That way you're not taken by surprise of what goes on in the classroom and you don't know how to handle the situation. So I've mentioned the action plan a couple times already, but this video is really going to be focused on creating this action plan. And I say plan because it is well thought out and written out. So you can share this information with the parents, the students, principals, any stakeholders, colleagues that want to get some extra classroom management tips. It's just a really great document to have on hand. I've actually kept mine since my first year, so I will be sharing that with you so you can get an actual closer look of what it really looks like. To start off, I really want to speak on my beliefs that shape the classroom management plan that I do have. So my classroom management is truly based on the foundation of love, as cliche as that may sound. I truly do believe love is where the heart of classroom management is in my classroom, and I'm really not afraid to use that term. I love my students, I love this world, and I love that my students get to become leaders when I'm old and gray. And so I teach and I have classroom management in a way that is really reflective of social justice practices. So first and foremost, I do not think that my students are delinquents or a burden to me. I do not think they're troublemakers. I truly believe that they come into the classroom just wanting to please me. And I see it in their faces. I see it in my first graders. I saw it in my high school students. They truly are there that want, and they want to learn. They want to connect with their teacher. And so I try to grab that in each student and really work with that. And one way they can kind of see that I know that they are a blessing to me, to my class, to this world. And so it really kind of changes their perspective on teachers and why we have a system in our class for classroom management. So it really just, the dynamic changes in the classroom when that foundation is there. Even though the students know that how much I care for them and how much I know that they're going to do great in this classroom, one of the ways that they know I truly do love them is by holding them to really high expectations for behavior. That doesn't mean I don't provide grace when they make mistakes, because they will make mistakes, but there is an action plan going forward and they know what exactly is in that action plan and why we have certain procedures and rules and why we don't have certain things. So I don't want to go on and on and on about why it's so important to have classroom management, because the research is out there. Just go search how having a great strong foundation of classroom management changes a dynamic of a classroom. But for this video, I really want to focus on creating an action plan so you could start this year with a plan going forward. What are your procedures, your positive consequences, your plan going forward, how you're going to teach, how you're going to share with the parents, and have it all in one document so you can always refer back to it. So you're never stuck in a rut when the principal says, oh, so what happened with the student that was throwing a chair in the room? These are all questions that you will be able to answer very easily because you had that plan, you had something to go along with. And so just follow along if you want to create an action plan for your classroom. Okay, so here is what the action plan looks like. It has my class at a glance, and so it's a 9-page document that I wrote my very first year of teaching. It's totally doable. I don't think I spent too much time on it, but I did really think about my class and about my schedule, so I'll show you what you do need before you write this action plan. So I wrote down that our diverse classroom will be an encouraging place for all the students to learn and interact with one another in a respectful way. The students will know that their main priority is to learn to succeed. I put this in there because it really gives me a purpose as to why I have this action plan. So this really helps me focus on what I want to achieve with having this classroom management plan. All I really want is for my students to respect. I know I wrote respect others, but since then, my one rule in the classroom has been respect. The reason why I only have one rule in the classroom is because students don't remember the rules, or they have a hard time remembering, especially when they're in the heat of the moment. But when I really delve into the word respect in the classroom, every day, every month, the entire year, they really do grasp a great idea of what that word means. Okay, so the next part is the class procedures. So because I only have one rule, I spend a lot of time on class procedures, and I needed a few things before I can create the class procedures. And so let me show you what I needed. So before I started anything, I created a schedule for myself. My first year teaching, this is this current year. It's still not updated, but I have a schedule like this, so I know exactly on Monday at 9:10 what am I doing. I know I have a clear idea of my entire day, all day, and so I'll know what procedures the students need to know. So for example, the students need to be able to walk into class and to sit down and have their breakfast. And so I want to teach them how to sit down, how to eat breakfast, what to do when they're done with eating breakfast. And so every single one of these subjects, there are so many procedures that need to be taught. And I don't really leave anything up to chance. I really do get very specific as to like what I expect of them, from their tone of voice, from their level of voice, to where they need to be physically. It takes a long time. I'm not even gonna lie. It takes a long time to really teach procedures in these subject areas, but it really does make a difference. But like 4 months in. And so if you are a brand new teacher, you can use what I used when I first started. So it's this Scholastic Teachers 30 Classroom Procedures to Head Off Behavior Problems. And so I use this. It already has a bunch of these procedures, anything from turning in lost items, fire drills, organizing desks, all of this. And you can either just take the procedure and create what you are comfortable with, because your procedures are not based on what other people are comfortable with. It's based on what you can live with. So you really have to decide on what procedures are most important to you and what you feel like will make your day much easier to live. This is a great list, and I'm sure there's a bunch more on Pinterest. And if you just go through your daily routine, think about, what do the kids need? What do the kids need to work with? How do they get the materials? How do they get up? Everything, all that you teach. So once you have all those procedures, you actually make a list of them. You make a list and then you write down, how are the students going to be achieving it? So my first procedure in my first year was walking in the classroom, and I wanted the students to line up outside the room according to my list, wait for me to open the door, and quietly walk in single file. they had to put their backpacks on hooks and backs of chairs. And so this is what we practice every single day, and I was very specific with all of these components of this procedure. And so if you look here, I have my very own list of procedures, and I taught them, and it just made my classroom so much easier. I'm not going to go into detail about every single one of them because it would take too long, but you can create your own, and you can just check back in this video or screenshot or pause if need be. Okay, so once you have those procedures, then you can really get started with creating your minute by minute. So if you've heard of this, then you know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, then this is something you can do to make your first week just so much more smoother. So here's my first week minute by minute, and this was last year's, so I'll need to update this. But pretty much, I write down every minute which is accounted for, and I write down what I teach, which procedure, how I teach it, any activities. Ooh. And so if you look here, you see a lot of procedures. So I don't teach procedures outside of the context area. So I'm not going to teach students how to put away their math books during writing workshop. I'm going to be working on writing workshop procedures. And so that's very important to remember. And so you can create your minute by minute, and this is going to make things so much easier for you. Okay, so let's put this away, and let's go straight into positive consequences. So in this action plan, you have procedures, but you also have positive consequences for the students. So you see some of them, or all of them, hopefully, are doing an excellent job with the procedures, and they're following all the directions. And so now you want to have consequences to kind of reward them in a way for their behavior. And so here's my free and frequent consequences. So I decided that I would smile often, gave high fives, handshakes, give them a salute, or I would praise them with my words. I didn't really think giving stickers or candy or anything like that was necessary. And I actually did stick with this, and I still stuck to this very day. So the smiles, the high fives, and the praise, they go such a long way with my students. First grade, high school, anything. It works really well. To really keep the good mojo going, or to really get my students to continue doing their good work, I tried to motivate them with the Caught You Going Above and Beyond weekly drawings. And by that I mean that I would give my students little tickets. So basically I would give my students tickets anytime I saw them or not anytime, but every so often when I saw them doing something that I really appreciated, and they got to write their name on it and put it in a little bowl. And so maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks I would pick 5 or so names from that bowl, and they would be able to choose something from the treasure box. So, and they really loved that, and I was able to keep up with that. And the stuff that I put in the treasure box were like one sticker, an eraser, a pencil, just really basic items. The other positive consequences I had were notes home, call home, choice of music played during writing time, special note on student desk. So as time went on, I noticed that I didn't write special notes on student desks or let them choose their music. It was my first year, so I was writing things that I just didn't know would work or not, and that's okay. And that, especially if you're a first year teacher, you start off with what you think will work, and then you'll go in and then you'll see that nothing is at all what you expected it to be. And that's okay. You'll know by second, third, fourth year, and then you'll be a pro after that. So I loved the call homes, notes home, and the drawings. And then the very absolute biggest positive consequences that I had were the monthly awards and the principal recognition. And so this is where I really got to choose the students that were just going above and beyond with their behavior. And I would be able to give them monthly awards where the parents could see, and the principal recognition was just one student every trimester, I believe. So you get to really choose what you are comfortable with and what you're willing to teach with, because this is a very personal thing. If you can't live up to these consequences, then you shouldn't mention it to the students because they will remember and they will hold you against it. And so make sure you can live with any or all of these consequences before putting it on your action plan. Okay, so once you have the positive consequences, you need to have a section where you talk about correcting behavior. In my correcting behavior list, I have 5 levels, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it starts from something very basic as seeing a student exhibit a behavior that I did not like, and I basically just gave them the look, the teacher look. You know it, you've seen it, it's terrifying, and the students are terrified. And so when I give that look, the students can right away change their behavior. But let's say a student does not. I think that year I individually spoke to students regarding off-task behavior. I really got to know my students, so I knew which students had trouble with certain types of off-task behavior, and so I would be able to really sit down with them and try to discuss that, what was the problem underneath it all, why they were exhibiting that same behavior over and over again. Because if I'm teaching the student to not exhibit that behavior but they keep doing it, then that means that I need to change the way I'm teaching, because obviously the student is not receiving that instruction. And then let's say that doesn't work. If the student continues off-task behavior, I'll assign an activity. So basically I teach them. So there's an actual lesson that goes along with it. I want to teach the behavior. I don't want to discipline. I don't want to get the student in trouble. The whole idea of this all is to correct the behavior. So if the behavior continues, then I will advise the student that there will be a call home, and I do call home. I noticed that if the behavior still continued, it usually doesn't, but if it did, then a simple other call home just wouldn't suffice. And so I actually did have the parents come in and the student came in, and we had behavior contracts set up, so the students would have to sign it and the parents would have to sign it, in hopes for the student to notice that what they are doing is not acceptable at all, and we would come up with ways on how the student could deter from that behavior. So now let's talk about something that is not usually spoken about when classroom management is brought up. So sometimes in classrooms you get a student that really is kind of like a volcano. They'll erupt and you won't know what to do. And you can't use any of the correcting behavior levels just because it's like a crazy bomb that just went off in class. Let's say a student starts throwing chairs in the room. What do you do? So I decided to have a crisis plan, and I titled it Crisis Plan. And the very first thing on that list is to send the student to the office with the crisis behavior card. So I don't like to send students outside of my class, period. But if the student is being very dangerous to the others, then I will have to remove them from the classroom. This has happened maybe once before, and the way I handled this was I called somebody from the office to actually come and remove the student from the classroom and other students to another teacher's class. I've seen this being done in other classrooms. I never went as far as to do that. Okay, so the next part of the action plan is the actual steps that you need to take to be able to live out everything that you just wrote. There are 3 parts to this action plan. So there are 4 parts to this action plan. The first part is develop, second is teach, third is share, and fourth is review. And so you start before the school year begins, because you need to think about all of this beforehand, and then you end the beginning of the second semester. And so basically, before the school year begins, what you're doing is creating your resources, creating posters for the students to show procedures and whatnot. You're creating office referral forms. You are creating folders with all necessary information to implement behavior plan, or if you plan on putting it on a board, you can print it out. You're designing certificates, and then the next part was the teaching. So I made these little brochures about behavior management or behavior in the classroom, and I did that before the year began. and I found videos on YouTube on showing kids how to behave in the classroom and how not to behave. And then on the first day in the first week of school, it actually went all the way to maybe the first month, is to find fiction books and read the books and teach the procedures using the books. And I also had really awesome experientials where I had students in groups and they would select a rule and model what it looked like and what it should not look like, and that was really fun. We also created storybooks, songs, and creative arts to learn the procedures and the rules and classroom behavior. And so once all that instruction was done, it was left to practice. So once we practiced, we lived through it, we were able to really share what happened in our classrooms with our school leaders. I thought that I would have to submit this type of plan to my principal, but they never asked for it. But you can have this in your filing cabinet or your folder, whatever it is, in case anyone asks how you do classroom management. You can just pull it out and say, okay, so these are the steps I take, these are what the procedures I teach. That way all of your bases are covered. And then lastly, to review, you look at your management plan and you conduct mini lessons depending on what you wanted the students to know and they're still not getting. So let's say your students come back after winter holiday break and you see that they're or they don't remember some of the procedures. You have to create mini lessons to bring those students back on track. Or you can create mini lessons for students that are still struggling. And that's about it. I hope this video is not too long. I hope you liked this video and I hope you got a lot from it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.